Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us on our first ever Trojan Bitesize webinar. So just a few bits of housekeeping before we start. You can ask questions by using the panel on the right-hand side of your screen here. You should be able to click the button here to see it and just type in your questions. I might not be able to get to them all today, or I might not be able to answer them all, but I will get back to everyone as soon as possible with an answer. Also, I'll send on a copy of all the slides that I'm using today to everyone afterwards, so you don't need to worry about taking notes. So today's topic is Microsoft Excel. Now I could spend a full day easily on Microsoft Excel, but I'm going to try and get through it as quick as possible this morning. I'm going to cover just quick 6 topics. I'll go through a few keyboard shortcuts, the search function, flash fill, VLOOKUP formula, ideas, and pivot tables. So a few keyboard shortcuts that I'll be using today will be to select all and control and copy and paste and everything. So I'll send on a link to everyone after the webinar with some useful keyboard shortcuts that you can use. But at least if you see me using these today, you'll know what I'm doing. So the first function is the search function that I'm going to show you. It's a great new tool that Microsoft have added to Excel. It has been there in the past, but the functionality that they've added to it has really improved for everyone. So I'll jump into Excel and I'll show you how to use it. So you can find it up here on the top of your ribbon here, and you can just see the search function. So if you click into it, you'll be able to find exactly what one you're looking for. And it's just a great time saver if you know the command you're looking for, but you don't know in what ribbon it is. So you can see here, I have all my company data, but I want to sort the company names from A to Z, but I don't know where to find sort. So I'll just jump up here, I'll type sort, and it brings me straight to it. So it just saves me some time looking for it in the ribbons across the top. And that's it done. So you can find loads of different things up here. Every command is here. Just type it and it'll bring you straight to it. Next one I'm going to look at is flash fill. Again, flash fill has been in Excel for a while now, but the functionality that Microsoft have added to this one is just unreal. It really uses intelligent AI information for finding and helping people kind of analyze data. So again, I will just be able, I'm just looking at the notes. Can everyone hear me okay? There's a few people, there might be a slight delay. I'll slow it down in case there is, but everyone should be able to hear me okay at the moment. Hopefully. So for flash fill, I'll just go into my data here, and I have a load of names and of contact people here, but some of them are lowercase and uppercase, and they're a mixed match of information. They're also separate columns, so I want to add them all into the same column. So I'm going to insert a column here. I'm going to call it contact name. Here. And I want to have it in proper case, and I want to have the 2 names into the 1 column. So I'm going to go Harvey Sector, type it as I want it to appear. Then I'm going to come to data, and I'm going to click on flash fill. And it automatically fills in all the data for me. So it recognizes that I want all the names in the 1 column and I want them in the proper case. So it's a really handy little tool if you have a big Excel sheet of data and you want to try and tidy it up, or it's maybe, a lot of different mixes in it and a lot of different fonts and everything. So you can tidy it up this way. There's loads of uses for it. So say I want to put a comma in between it, I can just do that. And again, flash fill recognizes what I want to do. And it completes it for the whole way down the sheet for me. So if you have thousands of lines, it's a real time saver. Okay. So, the next one I'm looking at is the VLOOKUP formula. So this formula is really useful for trying to find things in a table or a range. I use it all the time. Now it looks a bit daunting, it looks quite long, but really you're only given it 4 pieces of information. The first thing you need to tell it is the lookup value. So you need to tell what you want it to look up. The second thing we're looking at is the table array. So this is where you want Excel to look for this information. The third thing is the column index number. So this is the column number in the range containing the value you want to return. And the fourth thing is the range lookup. So this tells Excel whether you want the lookup value to be an exact match or an approximate match. So if I go into Excel here to show you exactly what I'm looking for, I have all my agreements here for all my different companies, but I can see that they're all active. But I know from earlier when I was going through my companies, that some of them are inactive. So I want to be able to see my company status next to my agreement status to see who's active and who's inactive. So I'm going to add a column here called company status. I'm going to use the VLOOKUP formula to bring in the data. So I say equals VLOOKUP and open bracket. Then you can see Excel gives me a few little hints as to what I need to type in here. So again, the first thing is the lookup value. So I want to get the company name and I want to find the company name in my companies over here and bring back the company status. So I'm going to select all of column C so that it'll select the company name the whole way down. Service, comma. Now I need to go to my table array. So this is where Excel needs to look for the company name. So I'm going to go over to companies, select the company names and the company status. Press my comma again. Now I need to tell it the column index number. So I'm going to start counting from the company name, so from the lookup value, and I'm going to count my columns over. So my company status is in column number 2, because your lookup value is always column number 1. So I'm going to just type in column 2, comma again. And now I need to tell Excel whether I want it to be an approximate match or an exact match. So I recommend always using an exact match. And what this means is that Excel has to find the ABC company name in companies and in agreements, and it has to match exactly. If you have a long list of companies and some of them might be quite similar, if you use approximate match, it might bring back the wrong information. So I'd always advise to use an exact match. So you can do this by typing 0 or by typing false, but Excel gives you the hints anyways. Then I close my bracket and press enter. And you can see it has brought back the active status for me here. That's for the ABC company. If I go back to my companies here, I can see that that is right. The ABC company is active. So if I come back to my agreements page, if I hover over the bottom right corner of this cell, my little cross turns black. If I double click on that, it'll bring it the whole way down for me. Now, what's actually wrong here is you can see from the first cell, the data I'm looking for is B2 to C10. But when I brought it down, it's actually gone into B3 to C11, which it shouldn't do. But there is a way to come around this. If I click back into the first cell and I go beside companies B2 to C10, if I click in beside that one and just press F4 on the keyboard, you see the way it brings in a little dollar sign beside the C. Again, if I do the same thing for the B2, just click in beside it and press the F4 on my keyboard, again, it brings in the $sign. What that means is it's absoluting the value. So if I press enter, and I then come over and hover here and double click again, it's now working perfect. So when I click into the first cell, B2 to C10, and then click into the second cell again, B2 to C10, it's still saved, and it's saved the whole way down. So that's the F4 button to absolute the value, so that when you drag down your formulas, that it still stays the same and it doesn't start counting down for you. So just looking at the questions just to see, I might just run through them and I'll come back to some of them then afterwards, if that's okay. Just make sure you can all hear me okay. There's a few things to remember when you're using a VLOOKUP formula. You always need to organize your table array data so that the value you want to look up is to the left of the return value. So what does this mean? Jump back into Excel for a minute. And I'll click on my companies page here. The value that I want to look up is the company name. The value I want to return is the company status. So the company status is to the right of the lookup value. If I wanted to return the company ID, at the moment I couldn't do it because my data isn't organized correctly. So I always need the lookup value to be to the left of the value I want to return. So that's something that you just need to remember, that you always need to keep the value you want to look up to the left of all the rest of the data that you want to return. And then remember again that the company or the lookup value is always column number 1 when you're starting counting. Another thing to remember is you should always organize your lookup values alphabetically from A to Z, or if you're using numbers, you should always organize it from smallest to largest. You should always try to remove duplicate values in your table array. So if you had the same company in twice and one of them was active and one of them was inactive, Excel wouldn't actually know which value to return. So it'll always just return the first value that it finds, but that might not be the right one. So you just need to make sure your table array has only unique lookup values. And as I said before, I always recommend using an exact match. Okay. So the next thing I'm looking at is the ideas button. So ideas, this is a new function in Microsoft Excel, and it really uses AI to bring back intelligent suggestions. So for someone who may not be, a strong Excel user, this is a great tool for them. So if I jump back into my Excel sheet here, I'm going to look at my sales targets this time. So I know I have to meet my manager and I need to bring back the sales figures to him, but I don't know what's the best way to present them. If I click on the column containing my current sales values, come to the Home ribbon, and over at the far right, you'll see there's an Ideas button here. So once I click this, it starts to load, and it's analyzing my data to bring me back charts that it thinks might be useful for me. So it brings back a few examples here. I look through them, I don't think that's any use to me. So I'm going to select the salesperson and the current sales and hit my Ideas tab again. This time I see this chart, I think, yeah, this chart looks good for me. I like the looks of this one. So to add it into my Excel sheet, I just click Insert Chart. And you can see it here. So it really is a quick and useful way to analyze data, especially, like, say, if you're maybe not sure how to present it, or if you're not that strong in Excel, it can really be a helpful tool. Perfect. Just getting some feedback there. Yeah, I think everyone can hear okay. That's great. So the last thing here I'm going to look at are pivot tables. And if you have a lot of data, that you want to try and analyze and you want to try and arrange, it can be hard to do it in a sheet. So pivot tables are a great way of doing this. So if I come back over to my Excel sheet here, I'm going to click this time to my agreements. I have loads of agreements here. So to insert a pivot table, you do is select all of the data in that active sheet, go to the Insert tab, click on Pivot Table. This little window will pop up for you here. It's going to create a new worksheet for me with my pivot table down here on the bottom, which is what I want. So I just click OK, and a new sheet appears for me. So when using pivot tables, this pane here to the right-hand side is what you need to know. Everything you use in pivot tables is going to be here. So you can see all of my column headers are here listed for me. Then I have 4 little boxes down here. Now, when I send out slides, you have a little bit more information on this pane here so that you can get more acquainted with it. But quickly, the first area here is the filters. So anything that you put in here will filter the data that appears in your pivot table. Anything you put in here into the rows section will create rows down here for you. Anything you put into this section here, into the columns, will create columns across the top. And then anything down here is the values section will create the data for you. So this will analyze your data. So this is probably the most important one that you're going to be using. So to bring the data down, you just select it up here, drag it down into the little box that you want it to appear in, and drop. So you can see all my company names are listed down here for me. Now I want to see all of my agreement types across the top. So I'm going to click on my agreement type. I'm going to drag it down into the columns section here. You can see all my columns I've created. But I have no data here as to what value anything is. So next I'm going to click on, say, agreement amount. And I'm going to drag that down into the values section here. You can see my agreements have all come in and their values beside them. This always defaults to sum of amount, but you can change this to count or percentage or whatever you want to, however you want the figures to be displayed. If this was text rather than a number that was in the column, it would default to count. So if I pull that out and say I put in my contacts, it'll default to count and it'll count the number of contacts for the company that are there. But I want to put in my amounts here. But I don't want to see it as a sum. I want to see it maybe as an average value. So I click on the little down arrow here, go to value field settings, and I have a list of options here of how I can display this data. So I'm going to click on average and press OK. So you can see the values have changed now, and they're now showing me the average value. But I have one more problem because I know some of these companies are inactive. So I only want to show my active companies. So I'm going to bring down the company status into the filters. And you'll see it appears up here on the top left-hand side. I click on the drop-down arrow. I come down to the bottom of it here. And I just click the little box beside select multiple items. This makes the little check boxes beside the company status visible. So I can now untick all of the statuses that are here and select only active. Press OK, and my list is filtered. So this is a very quick run through of pivot tables, but I'll get you started with them. And there's actually so much you can do with pivot tables, and you really can't break them. So I think the best thing to probably do is when you have your data set is to just create a pivot table and mess around with it. Drag items down, play around with them until you see the way you want it to appear. By moving the data around, you'll eventually figure out what's going to look the best for you. And it's very easy to drag and drop the information any way you want it. You could do it that way if you wanted as well. So they're easy to play around with. So I'm just going to run through some of the questions here. at the moment. Let's see if there's anything coming through. I'm not sure if there's a bit of a delay on it here. There might be. But what I can do is I'll send out everyone an email with the copy of the recording, with the slide deck, with some keyboard shortcuts. And if there's any questions that anyone wants to ask or there's anything they're a bit unsure about, you can just send me an email back or pop me a call and I'll get back to you and I'll help you as much as I can. So thanks everyone for joining us today. I hope you found it useful. We'll see you again next Thursday for the security and remote working webinar, and I'll be joined by one of the engineers to go through the technical aspect of it as well, and I hope to see you there. So thank you very much for joining us.